Son of Flubber is the 1962 Disney film. This is the sequel to The Absent-Minded Professor, and according to Wikipedia, this is actually Disney's first sequel, the first sequel to a Disney film, which, if true, is kind of interesting. This is directed by Robert Stevenson with a screenplay by Bill Walsh and Don DeGrady, and we have Fred MacMurray, of course, as Professor Ned Brainard. And Son of Flubber, I didn't know what this was about. Son of Flubber actually refers to flubber gas, which is the new product he's working on. And flubber gas is quite an interesting concept, and it has the ability to affect the weather. And I don't want to say too much about that and give away too much of the creativity, but I thought it was an interesting enough concept. To be honest, though, most of the film is kind of slow, but there is one scene that I loved, but it is a spoiler, so I'll mention it in a little bit with a spoiler warning. But the rest of it, I just found to be okay. It was fine. I didn't love it. I don't think it was as good as The Absent-Minded Professor. I don't think the concept of flubber gas is as fun as the concept of flubber, but it is a sequel. I can't expect everything to be as good as the original. That's fair enough. I think that Brainard is still a really interesting enough character. The performances in the film were really good, and as I said, there was one scene that I loved. So it's fine. It's probably not a film I'd watch again, but I wouldn't say I was bored watching it. I just wouldn't say I was particularly enthusiastic either. So it's fine. If you've seen The Absent-Minded Professor, then I'd say give it a watch. It's absolutely worth watching as a sequel. It's okay. But I also think that had I not seen Flubber, or let's say The Absent-Minded Professor, let's say that didn't exist, and this was just a film about a scientist creating flubber gas, I don't think it would have been as interesting. So it is one of those sequels where I think, having watched the first film, it's fun to watch the next part of the character's journey, which I guess is fair enough. But the point there is that it's not one that I'd say is worth watching if you haven't seen the first. Sometimes sequels are absolutely fine on their own, this one not so much. But in general, Son of Flubber was fine, absolutely fine. The scene, so a spoiler, I won't say what happens in the scene, but the context might be a bit of a spoiler. But this is the last thing I have to say about this, and the scene I'm talking about is one of the last scenes, and it's the courtroom scene. And I loved it. Now, I love courtroom dramas in general, so I knew there would always be a bit that would appeal to me, but the more it went on, it just became more and more ludicrous. And the moment they brought out, well, I won't say what they brought out, but they brought something out right at the end of the courtroom scene. And it was just fantastic. And it was fabulous and fun and funny and entertaining. And sadly, the rest of the film isn't of that quality, but it was absolutely worth it. So I really, really thoroughly enjoyed that scene. The rest of the film is fine. I think I've said that word a bit too much now, but it is. There's nothing about it that's bad. There was just very little about it that made me excited or interested or anything. So I'm glad I've seen it. Son of Flubber is a pretty decent sequel, but I wouldn't watch it a second time.